We've been covering here at the MeidasTouch Network how Donald Trump's secrets from the past are now resurfacing, and we've been doing a thorough investigation and vetting that had MeidasTouch been around in 2015 and 2016, we would have done. MeidasTouch was only started a few years ago, and as part of our investigation, I just came across this article and my mind was absolutely blown. I want to share this with you. It's a 1997 article from London's Sunday Mirror. 1997, November 23rd, 1997. Here's the article. How sweet. Trump's Brit of all right. Then you see the photo right there. Party girl Anushka. And here's the article. I'm going to read it to you. Wait till you see these connections here. Just weeks after ditching his second wife, referring to Marla Maples, America's best-known billionaire Donald Trump has fallen under the spell of a 20-year-old English girl. Trump, 50, who has failed in his bid to secure the services of Princess Diana's butler, Paul Burrell, was in search of another British trophy when he met London model Anushka de Georgia at a party in Manhattan. Several American millionaires already had their eyes on Anushka, but she was there with Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine, who was introduced several of her attractive friends to the property developer, who has introduced several of her attractive friends to the property developer, saying Ghislaine introduced several of her attractive friends to Donald Trump. And none of his would-be rivals owned a vast mansion in Florida like Donald does. Mar-a-Lago, where I have dined with him and his outgoing wife, Marla, is enough to make any young girl go weak at the knees. After their meeting, Trump flew Madame Maxwell and the model, referring to Anushka de Georgia, south to the Sunshine State, where all three enjoyed a happy weekend together. When they returned to New York, Anushka was installed in one of Donald's many apartments there. It says that Donald Trump installed Anushka, a 20-year-old, in one of his many apartments in New York after Ghislaine Maxwell introduced her to Donald Trump. Miss de Georgia likes older men. She went out once or twice with Joanna Lumley's ex-husband, Jeremy Lloyd, who is 45 years her senior. Doubtless it is the start of a long, by Trump's standard, already is, friendship. So I wanted to dig deeper. I mean, this is a pretty creepy story. Anushka, 20 years old, like what is going on here? So I looked up an article about who is Anushka de Georgia. And let me show you right here. Here's an article that I found. How a British teen model was lured into Jeffrey Epstein's web. Anushka de Georgia, who grew up in an affluent family, says she fell into Epstein's circle of abuse through well-connected friends. This is the same Anushka mentioned in the 1997 article that Ghislaine Maxwell introduced Anushka to Donald Trump around the time, or right after she was assaulted by Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what the article says. Anushka de Georgia was living a charmed life in the mid-1990s. A teenage model from an affluent family in London, she had a future as bright as her megawatt smile. But then de Georgia got sucked into Jeffrey Epstein's orbit through well-connected friends. They met for the first time in London. In time, she was being flown to Epstein's properties around the world, including his private island in the Caribbean on flights he paid for. The grooming, de Georgia said, was subtle but persistent and pervasive. By the time I was being raped, it was too late, de Georgia, recounting the details of her experience for the first time, told NBC News as part of a months-long Dateline investigation. The abuse, DeGeorgia said, spanned several years and locales. In addition to the estate on his private island, DeGeorgia said Epstein preyed on her at his homes in New York and Paris. And in every location, there was this microcosm of acceptance of, yes, people who acted like this was normal, DeGeorgia said. If you're a young person walking to a mansion or someone's island and all the people who are present are acting as though this is okay and you're the only one who thinks it's weird, it's hard to say something, DeGeorgia told Savannah Guthries. And so she was with Epstein and Ghislaine, and then Ghislaine introduced her to Donald Trump. And then when she was 20 years old, then Donald Trump installed her in one of his apartments. Now, if you look at the time when all of these photographs of Donald Trump and Epstein were taken, take a look at this photo. Look at the date. 1997, which is the same date as that article that I read for you at the outset of this video from the Sunday Mirror, November 23rd, 1997. And this is from Palm Beach, Florida, 1997. Jeffrey Epstein left and Donald Trump as they posed together at their Mar-a-Lago estate. Now, we've also reported here, and it's been reported elsewhere, Donald Trump has appeared on the flight logs of Jeffrey Epstein's private jet over 7 times. You can see Donald Trump's name right there. In the newly released deposition transcripts that just came out, you can see that Jeffrey Epstein would bring women to Donald Trump's properties and say he was calling Donald Trump up. I mean, this is what the deposition states from one of Epstein's victims. Answer or question: how did it come to be that you were in a casino in Atlantic City? Answer: as we were flying, Jeffrey said, why don't you go sit in the cockpit to check out the landing? So we were sitting there and the pilots told me to go back and tell him that we can't land in New York and that we were going to have to land in Atlantic City. Jeffrey said, great, we'll call up Trump and we'll go to, I don't recall the name of the casino, but we will go to the casino. That was from a deposition transcript that was released right there. You know, also around this time period, and one of the reasons I kind of even went down this rabbit hole is Melania has been nowhere to be seen at the various Trump events. And then at the New Year's party, I saw Donald Trump, our editor-in-chief at MeidasTouch.com, posted this photo of Donald Trump with someone by the name of Paolo Zampoli, which is a weird photo. That got me thinking and going down this whole. I'm like, who's this person that Donald Trump is taking the photo with and hanging out with all night? And you see Donald Trump has this kind of weird El Dolce, Mussolini kind of look to him. It's a very strange photo. So I looked into, okay, who's Paolo Zampoli? And then Paolo Zampoli ran a modeling agency in New York in the mid-1990s where he would bring foreign women into the United States, and they would become models for his modeling agency. And then he would throw events at clubs, like one club was called the Kit Kat Club, where he threw these frequent events, and he would invite wealthy men to meet these models. And one of the models, these foreign models who came to the United States, was Melania Trump. When? In 1998. So 1997, Trump, Anushka, 1998, you have Melania, Trump meets Melania at the Kit Kat Club, introduced by Paolo Zampoli right there. And then Donald Trump ends up getting Melania a genius visa, and Melania becomes a citizen on an expedited basis right there. So that kind of took me down the rabbit hole of like, I don't think that these pieces have ever really been put together in a meaningful way to think about Donald Trump's life at this time period. What was he doing during this time period and making these connections? And, then of course I saw this article from 2020. It's from the Guardian, I believe. teen models, powerful men, and private dinners. When Trump hosted, this is what it looked like. And it talks about how in the early 90s, again, all around this time period I'm talking about right now, Donald Trump judged the world's biggest modeling competition, which was hit by allegations of abuse. And here's how the article describes what Donald Trump would do at this time period. On September 1, 1991, a large private yacht cruised towards the Statue of Liberty. It was a clear, breezy evening, and from the upper deck of the Spirit of New York, a golden sunset could be seen glinting off the Manhattan skyline. Downstairs, a party was in flow. Scores of teenage girls in evening dresses and miniskirts, some as young as 14, danced under disco lights. It could have been a high school prom were it not for the crowd of older men surrounding them. As the evening wore on, some of the men, many old enough to be the girls' fathers or even grandfathers, joined them on the dance floor, pressing themselves against the girls. One balding man in a suit wrapped his arms around two young models, leering into a film camera that was documenting the evening. "Can you get some beautiful women around me, please?" that man said. The party aboard the Spirit of New York was one of several events that Donald Trump, then 45, attended with a group of 58 aspiring young models that September. They had traveled from around the world to compete in Elite's Look of the Year competition, an annual event that had been running since 1983. And this was in connection with something called Elite Modeling Management run by John Casablanca. So you've got parties at the Kit Kat Club with Paolo Zampoli. You've got elite management parties on yachts with girls as young as 14 with old men grinding on 14-year-old girls. And Donald Trump is attending these yacht parties. You've got this article that I'm sharing with you right now from 1997 of this introduction by Ghislaine Maxwell to Anushka, a victim of Epstein, who then Donald Trump put in an apartment. All of this has never really been put together. I mean, these pieces are out there, but how utterly despicable and disgusting and obvious what's going on is. It's obvious what's going on. And then I saw an interview with Anushka DeGiorgio recently on, I think it was NBC. Let me share with you this interview, because then when I saw this interview, my mind was blown again. And by the way, this interview was, I think, taken in it's about 4 years ago, 1999. I mean, in 2019, this interview. Take a look at this interview from NBC, and I'm just going to play the first minute and 20 seconds for you, but watch how Mar-a-Lago factors into this as well, too, and you'll see Anushka DeGiorgio here. Here, play this clip.
This is everything. The only solace for me is that when a group of people who've experienced trauma of this kind come together united against a common enemy, there's a very special bond between us all.
A painful bond shared among these 6 women sitting together for the first time for an exclusive interview with NBC News.
I find it very comforting to be here.
Marika Chartouni, Anushka DeGiorgio, and Rachel K. Benavidez sharing their stories about Epstein for the first time on television.
I think the nature of this kind of abuse means that you're conditioned to be silent, to be isolated, secretive, and shameful.
I feel like, it was a big game for him, and we were the pieces of his game.
And you're like, I'm just not going to say anything because that's what he told me to do.
The women all have familiar stories of grooming, promises, and then sexual assault.
I can relate to pretty much every person sitting here next to me.
Virginia Roberts-Giuffre says Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her one summer when she was working as a locker room attendant at Mar-a-Lago. In her first broadcast interview, Virginia tells NBC News what she has previously alleged in court filings, that Epstein directed her to also have sex with a number of powerful men, among them Britain's Prince Andrew.
And now, with all of that as background, take a look at what Donald Trump said in 2002 to New York Magazine about Jeffrey Epstein, saying that Epstein was a terrific guy and noted his penchant for pursuing women on the younger side. You've now seen all of the video. You've seen those articles. After all of that, Donald Trump knows all about that, about Epstein. And in 2002, Donald Trump says the following: "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy," Trump told New York Magazine, quote, "He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." With all of that you just saw, that was Donald Trump's statement in 2002. So as you see then the other victims that are all together, then you have Virginia Giuffre, who's very well known and experienced horrors. I never realized, I don't know if you realized, I never realized that Virginia Giuffre was working at Mar-a-Lago, and that's where Epstein met Giuffre, and all of what we've since learned and the horror and tragedy that Giuffre's been through. She was met by Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, and the same way that the way Donald Trump met Anushka was through Ghislaine at some of these other parties that were taking place. All of that is right here in front of our eyes. You know, and again, why do I bring this up now? Because to me, number one, moral character is everything. It's everything right now. It's when you see this behavior by Donald Trump and you see this past, I'm sorry, we should not ignore this behavior. Of course, I'm going to cover everything else that I do here at the MeidasTouch Network. And we've got some of the best team that covers the legal reports and that covers politics and economics. We're going to do all of that 99% of the time. But what I don't want to neglect is what legacy media has not put these connections together, and what they've obviously have neglected in 2016. I've never seen the stories that put these pieces together. Are they too afraid to make these connections and to share it in this way? It's just so obvious when you put the links together. And so when I read that article, looked up who these people were, and then put this all together, it was something I had to share with you immediately. Share this video with as many people as you can. It's data driven. You see all of the data. I'm just reading all of the articles and putting it together. Shocking to see. I mean, nothing shocks me the depths of depravity of Trump, but when you put these links together, it's something else. Anyway, hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers thanks to your support. And check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Thanks for watching.
Hey, Midas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.